And we are live. Yeah. Today we are on this live episode. We are with Antoine B. Carriere. And actually, Antoine is my mentor and my consultant. Actually, I believe that I had two very, very inspirational consulting sessions with Antoine. And he's also my sister's mentor for a year now or more. I believe that he has done a serious business transformation with her. Antoine is based in Canada, and he's actually a French Canadian. So, so I believe this is something I learned about today, and I believe he has many success stories transforming other leaders and consultants' way of work. Today, this is the first of a series of episodes that are monthly, that we under the title Discover and Develop. This is the title that we chose for these sessions. And I would love Antoine to start. To welcome Antoine. It's I know it's 9 a.m. in the morning at your time. Thank you for accepting this invitation and welcome in this live episode. Yeah, how are you?
Thanks, Sharaf. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that we have a chance to have a discussion and really try to tackle maybe some of the challenges that people have, because fundamentally, I think, we can go back to some good roots and be able to change things. So I look forward to having those conversations with you.
Thank you, Antoine. And actually, I believe that each conversation we have together, it's always in the moment. It always comes up with great learnings, great insights. This how you frame things. You're amazing in that. So, I would love to make it just very, very open and and in the moment as most of our sessions are. So, what do you like to start with? Sharing with our audience. Most of our audience, I believe, on my page are leaders of organizations, they're middle managers, seniors. Some of them are coaches or consultants. So they deal with people a lot, and actually they have people issues, whether they're teams, whether they're organizations, whether they're working as coaches or consultants working. So, what do you like to start with normally when you so?
Well, I think it's very important for me to say that I'm fascinated by people. I'm fascinated by people. I'm fascinated by personalities, by cultures. Part of what I love to do when I travel, and this is like I actually schedule this, is to sit in a local market square and watch how people interact. I love going into grocery stores and seeing how that feels compared, as I travel around the world, because they feel so different and you get a good sense. But all that being said, for me, people are at the core of what we do. We, as much as we're talking about computers, automation, we talk about bringing things forward.
So it seems that Antoine has a minor technical difficulty, and actually I will just be continuing to talk until he comes back. Actually, one of the things that I learned from Antoine that was really amazing is picking up from exploration of culture. The way that the second person or the client that's with you, he actually looks by your eye with total curiosity. I mean, this is something that really amazed me, that for a year now, my sister was in Canada trying to convince me, Sharaf, Mohamed, please work with Antoine. He's really good and he will help you. So I was telling her, how can somebody in Canada understand our market here in the Middle East? I won't go for him. So she invited me for a free session. The first free session was a free session with Antoine. And he was totally into holding a space to understand the world through my eye, not from his perspective. And this was really amazing. I really felt safe. I really felt heard and listened to, versus maybe some consultants here who I worked with in the Middle East. And they were very judgmental, they're very into conclusions, very into guiding, giving direction without really following through or understanding how you see the world and how you see your service. So this was really amazing. When working with Antoine, I felt really safe, and I actually took the second session. I believe I'm still learning, and actually invited him for this series of conversations that we can have on LinkedIn. And he was really very responsive, very generous actually in his in how he delivers his consultancy and his sessions. I really love working with him. Um, One of the things that really mattered with when I dealt with it with Antoine, he is actually a consultant in strength-based coaching, and he looked at my strengths profile, and he didn't start putting me in a frame of using, my strengths, my profile in the beginning. But whenever there was a chance, while I was conversing with him and telling him, yeah, this is where I want to fit, this is how I want to really work with my clients, this is where I believe my value comes in, he actually added maybe a connection between one of the strengths in the profile that maybe not on the top 5, maybe it's something in the top 10 or maybe in the 15th or something like that. And he points it out. He tells me that this is how it connects with the second, with the third, with the fourth. And actually, maybe that this can fit. And I have to look at maybe something that's underdeveloped, or maybe something that's not a real strength, or something in the that I need to capitalize on and work it out to learn and develop and really outshine my competitors or something like that. So, in the conversations, actually the way of the discovery itself, the way of the questioning, the way of how things were delivered, and me myself receiving this service with Antoine was really amazing. I really loved it. I really loved, and I really actually respect all the experience I had with him. So actually, it was really two insightful sessions I had. It may change my my life detour and how I put myself as a consultant in the market and working with organization leaders, working with different with different coaches, how I spot on working with my clients. I believe this was amazing, when working with Antoine. We are still waiting for Antoine to continue the discussion, and he's not yet appeared. Maybe he has a difficulty in the internet or something like that. So I believe that this live interview with Antoine will actually. I'll wait for another 2 or 3 minutes and then call him, because sometimes they have some shut off in the electricity or something like that. So I hope everything is fine on his side. On the other side, I'm waiting also for your comments, maybe your questions, knowing his background. I'll put here the website of Antoine if you want to visit his website and understand what he does. Actually, his website is Antoine B. Carriere. And actually, you can go and look at his services and how he works with the clients, what clients he invites. That would be great. And this is the website now. It's on the ticker now, and the email is antoine@gabcm.ca if you want to work with him directly. So that would be great. Maybe I will talk a little bit about discovery process and working with the clients on the discovery, because actually it was one of my teachers or masters. It was actually Gita Bellin. She was talking about the discovery and actually how these words come together. And then I learned it again from Thomas Gartenman, and he was one of my mentors also and people that I learned from a lot. And actually, the same landing came at discover is it's dissociation, or actually taking off, and cover is removing the cover out of things. And actually here, we as consultants, our coaches, when we work with our clients, there is an important places that they don't look at, and we have to actually bring it to their awareness. And lots of leaders when they're having challenges in leadership and taking the organization to the next level, and maybe working with their teams to actually to shine and to successfully engage in their mission and vision, and actually engage in their strategy, they find difficulties that really hinder doing that, and they don't know where to search for. And this is where we come actually to support you, to partner with you, to help discover. We don't know, and actually it's a good thing that somebody who doesn't know help you find the right questions and the right places to search in. And the discovery process actually is something that many organizations don't know where to start from. And actually, when we engage in the beginning, we don't know also, but we actually can support. Hello and welcome back, Antoine.
Apologies. The challenge of doing something live and your
Yeah,
internet shutting down.
yeah. I thought that this is what happened. Yeah, and I was waiting for you, and I was talking about the discovery and the discovery process. And when the client doesn't know where to, and when the client puts a challenge in front of you, and actually you go there and you don't know where to start from,
Mm,
and actually you start the exploration and the discovery process together, and how enjoyable it is and how unique it is per client, and the discovery process is a process of its own. So can you tell me, maybe this is where we can actually start, because I was maybe talking about when we go to clients, and clients actually look at us as experts and consultants working with them, and they don't know what are the causes of the pain, what are the challenges that are happening, what are, and they ask you to start discovery. Yeah, tell me, where do I start from?
yeah, and I think for me, where I start fundamentally is looking at some of those essential elements. And so, what I mean by essentials is what's the purpose and the mission of the organization? Is it clear even for the leader? Because one thing that I've learned is that sometimes it is for the person who created it, but then it gets lost as we get new leaders coming in, and so it doesn't become clear. The other one is talking about, not just what we do, but why we actually do it. So what is the actual purpose? And for me, I think it's what kind of impact do we want to have on our clients? And what is the transformation that we want to be able to have on them? And so understanding what they want to achieve and what kind of impacts they want to have on their own clients allows us to start to understand how do we frame, right? And then the next, so when you start finding out what that belief is, and now starting to talk about clients, now I will tell you that most clients that are struggling for me are people who will tell me I sell to everyone. And it's one of the fundamental challenges. Anybody could be my client. I sell food, so everybody has to eat, so everybody could be my client.
Okay.
And so when you have an executive team, when you have leaders, when you have coaches that are trying to sell to everybody, oftentimes the message doesn't land with anyone. And
Okay.
so for me, again, so when I start that discovery, it's about really starting to understand where do they come from, what are those essentials, what are they trying to achieve, and then from there, what are their pain points, and not just the symptoms, but it's also looking at what might be root causes of those. And I'll be honest, a lot of times it comes from our leadership teams. It comes from the leadership teams that are very task oriented and not necessarily results oriented. And anyway, there's so many things that come about, but the first thing is the core elements aren't done. And so when you start talking with them and you go, who are you trying to reach? You're saying our marketing's not working well. We're losing clients. And I'm like, okay, well, who's the ideal client that you're trying to reach? And they're going to be, well, I'm trying to reach everyone. And that I will tell you that it is not a long-term success approach when we use that. So
Wow.
fundamentally, that's how I get started.
So you start from the essence of the business itself, and then start looking at the frame where they, and then you start discovering questions. So when do you find a systemic approach that's, that's it is really viable, it can be used or something like that?
Um, I don't have a step-by-step approach, so I'll admit I'm very individualized when it comes to my clients, because it depends what they answer as I move forward. And so again, the approach that I would take is very much what's going on, who are the leaders. I also like to discover their talents, and so I use a tool called the Clifton Strengths. And so for me, that allows me to understand how the individual in front of me is filtering the information. And it allows for a very different conversation. So how I'm approaching something. So if somebody's very people oriented, then we'll have people conversations. If somebody's very strategic oriented, then I will have conversations that talk about strategy, that talk about impact, right? And how do we go about setting that up? And so, there's two other areas, which is influencing and also executing. And so we've noticed that there's kind of four demands of leaders and of teams. And so it's about having a strategic thought, being able to share that thought out and influence and bring partners on. So that's the influence part. From there is being able to build and develop relationships and then execute the work. And so all of those elements need to be covered. And so I kind of do that through all of that loop. I don't know if that addresses what you were looking for in terms of for information.
Okay, so you start with their style and information and how they receive the information, and then you move towards the other three, right?
And I move, sorry?
Then you move to the other three afterwards. You cover all the aspects of how the leadership works, right?
I do, but I would say that's not where I get started. Really, what you have to look at is how is what they're naturally wired to do. How's that influencing? How are they filtering the information and sharing it? And then how are they connecting with their own teams? And
Okay.
so it's not about shoring up what we don't have. It's about being more of who we already are. And so for me, it's not about what's missing. It's about understanding what I already do best. And then how do I surround myself? How do I become better at what I'm doing? How do I use what I'm already doing to deliver other things? And then the flip side is, how do I then go about to team up with people who can complement me? So it's not about me transforming. If I'm a great strategic thinker, but I'm not really good at executing, it's not about me going to spend time to find out how do I execute more. It's about how do I use those talents to help me execute and then to help me team up with people who are good at doing that.
Wow. Can we go more specific on a story or something, maybe a success story, if you can share without having disclosure or something on the clients?
Yeah. So one leader that I was working with, and so this was another coach, and this coach had a talent called intellection. And so intellection is this kind of really great, powerful talent that allows people to take the information and take things that are going on around them and to actually mull and to actually they're thinking about things. Part of an action plan is taking time to think. And so for some people are going, what do you mean you're going to take time out to think? And there for them, it's like, well, I'm not going to have a great action. And so what was very interesting is that when we were doing workshops together, he leads with intellection. And I'm like, well, how are you going to be present and in front of people and bring, how does that talent where you're sitting back and reflecting on things? And what I was amazed by when I saw this person move forward was as he was doing things, he has the power of registering information and bringing it back. So on day 2, he was able to say some participants, well, you remember yesterday morning when you were interacting, you were saying this. Well, here's a link. On day 3, he was doing the same thing. And it's like those coaches that are working from session to session to session. Somebody said something in session 1, and in session 5, you bring it up. And so what you're seeing is, right, I have to take really good notes if I want to bring those things back, because it's not natural. For this individual, it just that information sits and they work on it. Right. And so that's a great example about, it's not about saying, well, I'm live with somebody, so I can't use my intellection talent, which is about being in my head. It's about, how do I register information so that I can use that to my advantage in another time.
Wow.
And so for me, that's where you start discovering that it's like, if that person was just sitting there and reflecting on things throughout a whole session, then it wouldn't be useful to your client. And so that's where it comes about, is understanding our talents and when do we use them and not use them. When are they useful and not useful? And the more it's that self-awareness as a leader, right? It's not just about being a great executor or doing things. It's about taking a step back and going, who am I? And how does that influence, right, how I share information, I lead projects, I lead people, I connect with people. How does all of that work?
Okay, amazing. Yeah, thank you about that. And I believe that it really landed with me when you used this, my talents, and connected them together in one statement. I still have this recording until now, and I'm replaying it just to, how can I articulate this to my clients? But actually, it was the first time to connect everything together. I have to acknowledge that. And thank you, Antoine.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that, Sharaf.
So after maybe the discovery and actually working with clients on different ways, and actually, as you said, it's a very individualistic approach, and you don't have a step-by-step procedure. Working with, this is the blueprint that I would work with clients. So how can we change this discovery into a development plan afterwards? So when is the moment where you tell this, yes, that's where they would develop, and actually you start following through with them until
with the
things happen? Yeah.
And for me, the first part is about, how do we take that step back and make sure that those fundamentals are answered? And once I'm able to do that in terms of, setting up, where do I want to go? Who do I want to deal with? What's the impact I want to have? Now it's about, okay, how do I move that forward? And so, it's about starting to look at those elements. What are we already doing well? So one of the things that I always like to highlight is what's already going well, and how do we maintain what's already successful? Because one of the things that happens often in organizations is that we spend so much time thinking about what do we need to fix, that we forget to maintain what's already going well. And so for me, the first step is about, where's those success ideas? How are things going about? Now, after that, it's about, what are we trying to achieve, and what are those, either the challenges or the steps that we need to do? A lot of that is actually a lot of reflection. And so there are some clients that are very good at taking that kind of what I call homework, right? If we go back to our years at school, we take that information, we go off and work on it by ourselves, and then we come back with a result. When we deal with executives, the demands on their time is so high that oftentimes the work that I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to guide them through that reflection. And so, because if they have a 3-hour session booked with me, even if I give them 20-minute sessions as we're going through for them to reflect, to think about, and to come back, they wouldn't have taken their 3 hours or their 2-hour session probably individually. And so now we're going to take all of that information, and now we're going to package it. And so that's the next part. And we're also going to get feedback from people that you work with. So if you're the business owner or you're the coach, you're taking that yourself. Sometimes I bring that to my coaching group. Okay, here's where I'm going. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? For sure that as we move forward in our profession, we're continuously, honing and fine tuning what we're doing. But so it's about putting that package. But one of the big parts is looking at what kind of actions can we associate with each one of those strategic things. So what am I going to concretely do? Not just where do I want to end up, not just the result, but what actions am I going to undertake so that it will help me get started? And so I go from the strategic part to actions and action planning, so that this is kind of what we're going to do. And then from there, we set out the kind of the calendar in terms of what do we want to achieve and by when. So those would
Okay.
be the steps that I kind of undertake with helping a client go through those various areas. But I will tell you that most of them are always surprised because that first part takes a lot of time. And that
Okay.
first part only has a couple of deliverables, but it's so key in setting up everything else. Right? So it's like deciding that you want to travel to Istanbul, but really right now, okay, your plan, you've gone forward so fast that everything that you've said is that you're going to end up in Tunis. Okay. And so again, it's about going, well, why did I end up in Tunisia versus Turkey? And somebody's going, I don't understand, but it's because I set the plan in motion without knowing what I truly want to achieve.
Okay. So that's really very, very, very powerful, you know. And actually, here I just have a real, يعني a question here that comes in and pops to my mind. What if the client doesn't follow through with this action plan? You know, doesn't actually have any patience in the discovery phase, and this is something we face a lot. You know, they want easy solutions, they want quick solutions, they want actually very يعني a very short discovery process, and he wants a very short disruption, you know, just to fix things, you know, just to go fixing around. And I believe that this is something that patience here is important. But how can يعني how can you how often did you deal with clients like that, you know, that they were very impatient, they wanted to move quickly, they wanted answers, and they don't have the cost of getting things really fixed and you know.
So Sharaf, I'll be honest. I've learned
Mhm.
over the years that I just kind of say, well, then I'm not the right coach for you.
Wow.
And so I will say to that client is like, I can set a whole bunch of band-aids, but what happens is that in 2 years from now, you're still going to be facing the same problem. You're still going to be putting a whole bunch of band-aids, and it might seem good, right? It's like putting makeup on somebody. Well, yeah, you might have put the makeup, but at a certain point, it's not going to stay on all the time. And so you still have to go get that fundamental of what's going on. And so I'll often say to that client is, can I give you some quick fixes? Yes. I'm going to tell you you're not going to be happy. So are you okay having a mandate? And most of the time, I will often say, come back and see me once you've tried all those quick fixes and realize that you have to start back and rebuild, fix that foundation.
Oh wow.
And so that's just my choice. It's my choice in the way that I move forward, because that with the talents that I have and what I bring to the table, I'm forever going, yeah, this isn't like, I already know we're going to have challenges. We might get we might get some wins, but we're not probably not going to have the long-term success that we're looking for.
Wow. I believe that honesty and candor is appreciated, but not in the beginning, right? Because actually, whenever I go to the client and tell them that this will not work and it will not suit your requirement, I believe that yani mostly there is some sort of disappointment, especially that there are lots of coaches and consultants that actually can offer themselves as, yeah, I have a quick fix for you. You know,
And
I'm the
that's
leader. You
fine,
know, I'm
right?
the man. I'm the man for the job. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine by all means. And I think that's where self-awareness as a coach or as a leader becomes important, right?
Mm.
So I'll be honest, when I do my small business coaching and I work with entrepreneurs, I'm helping them build a business to last, not a business to sell. And I'll make that distinction. When you look at a lot of tech companies, it's about how sexy and how fast can I build something so that somebody can acquire me, or I can get to IPO very quick. But a lot of those companies that get acquired, part of what they've developed is there and the rest disappears, right? Or a lot of the ones that are just trying to be very sexy don't ever get to the point where, in 5 years they're still around, even if they never get acquired. For me, I think the fundamental is about how do I build something so that it will, like for me, when I build it, is about when I retire from my business, the business is going to be stronger and continue without me. I am not my own business. And that's me, right? There are a lot of people who are looking at within the next 5 years, I need to make my first million. Fine, I'd like to make my first million. But I think the flip side to that is I also want my businesses, that's my pension plan. And so as an entrepreneur, when I'm building something, and it's also, I want it to be my hobby when I semi-retire, right? That's kind of the idea. And so the clients that come up to me and say, Antoine, I want to do this, I'm going to go, you know what, go see somebody. But when your systemic problems are still occurring in a year or two, come back and see me. The door's open. Just because you're not ready for it now doesn't mean that you're not going to be ready for it later.
Wow. So,
and I'll be honest, my first session with somebody is I'll have this conversation. And so I'm going to say to somebody, are you good with what I just said? Are you okay that I call you out? Yeah. Are you okay with what I just, and if you're not, you know what? I have a whole bunch of coaches that I know that have different styles, and I'll make a good recommendation for you. I'm not here to leave you without it. Sorry, Sharaf.
Yeah, I believe this happened with me. You asked me about, I have to actually put the focus for 6 months to make this happen and actually to make my plan work. And you offered your support during this period, actually, and tell me what kind of partnership you want to make, because actually the actions to take a detour, I believe this, I'm just second, I'm echoing, that I found this as a client with you. So.
Well, and it's about being honest, right? So one of the things that I need to do and that I'm doing with my clients is saying, okay, well, reflection work is going to take you 8 hours in the next 2 weeks. Are you okay committing to 8 hours of reflection approximately for you to get to the next part? And some people go, oof, Antoine, finding 8 hours is tough. And I'm like, okay, so you're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars every year because your business isn't growing the way you want it, but you can't commit 8 hours. Yeah. Let's have and those are the fundamental questions that I sit back. It's like a leadership team going, yeah, we're not engaged. Our teams and our staff aren't engaged. And I'm like, okay. By the way, I had a conversation with all of your 5 leaders, and everybody's saying something different. So you're wondering why the organization isn't a whole. Well, as a leadership team, you're not a whole. So let's do a retreat. Oh, no, Antoine, spending 2 days every 3 months, away from the office isn't going to be good. And I'm like, well, until you guys get your stuff together. So you're telling me that it's not worth spending 8 days out of your 365 to make sure your organization's going to go well. Mm-hmm. Fundamentally, that's the question you need to ask.
And it's very, very, very strange that when you find that the operational, things come up and on the cost of the strategic things or the strategic actions, that actually, in a way, most of the leaders currently, especially in technology industry, they see that taking off, their leadership team or the management team or their seniors in a retreat for a strategic action, strategic camp or something like that. This will take them off their operational, day-to-day work, and the company will actually go in and this is something that I believe that needs to be relooked. What kind of leadership model that they have, and how much time do they need actually to transform this. To make, actually you should always have time to think strategically, and this is mostly the most important thing that that will lead that entire organization into doing the operational stuff or the operational actions more efficiently and more delicate. So
Yeah, I think we talked about this during one of our sessions, but for me as a leader, there's an imagery that landed well. Okay, so soccer or European football, no matter where you're listening from, okay, is a great example for me because it's a sport that I love. And so as a coach, right, as a coach, you're on the sideline, you're giving directions, but you're never on the field. And anytime that there's a coach who's also a player is missing what's going on overall because they're also concentrating on what they're doing.
yeah,
And so we have to have leaders who are now taking that step back about my job, just like a soccer coach, is to set up practices, set up opportunities to develop my team, to make sure that my team, when we hit the game time, we're ready to play. The challenge is that we start our league as businesses, we start playing all the time. And sometimes, we may give 5 hours of development or 10 hours of development to one of our staff. 10 hours, that's it. Out of the 1,000 that they spend in a whole year, that's less than 0.1%.
mm-hmm.
And so when we think about it, it's like taking a soccer team and just having them play and never practice. For anybody who's ever played competitive and you're training quite a bit, and then you come up and when you retire from playing competitive, you start playing those fun leagues and you never practice together, but the team never increases or gets better.
Yeah.
And so as a leader, we have to start changing our mindset from I am a person who's leading work and I am completely essential to how do I help my own team my job is to give them all the tools so that they can function without me.
Yeah. I believe that part of the challenge of most of the clients I work with in the technology industry is that they actually feel that they give development opportunities for their staff working in new projects that are technically challenging. And actually putting them in exposure, both technically and maybe with the clients, they consider this already as a development. And actually, especially that's most of the technical calibers to make them accountable. It takes for something like 3 to 5 years of development until you make them actually accountable for tasks or projects or things like that. They take a lot of time to develop. So they are always thinking that that this intellectual or technical capacity or technical development is enough. And here, maybe there, I advocate, in contrary to that this is already, they're in the play, in the match. If taking this metaphor of the soccer field, this is the match time. They need to take some time off and out of, the what's happening in the matches and what's happening in the technical development and what's happening there. And they have to actually look at the team dynamics, their behaviors, their strengths, look at retrospectively what's happening between them and their leadership, because it's overwhelming. It's totally very, very strange that when it happens like that. So I'll just mute myself for the call for prayer, and I'll hear you talking, with our audience.
So I can't echo more of what you're saying, right? I think part of giving somebody a new challenge is like, well, I'm going to put you on a new team and I'm going to give you new tools. I'm going to give you new soccer gear. And it's like, well, go. Well, can you learn? Yes. But are you really building an environment where that person can be at its best? And are you actually taking the time in what you're doing to give them the tools so that they can actually be at their best in that new environment? And the challenge is, Sharaf, most of the time, no, that's not the case. There are some people who are lucky enough to be able to do self-development. But that's oftentimes it's outside of the hours. And so when our projects don't explode, when our projects don't shine, we wonder why. When they fall flat or when they don't even get completed, we wonder why. And yet we didn't set up our whole team for success. Because, by the way, right? So that costs money. They're not producing. And it's this weird mindset that we have, that it's like you go to school, you get a diploma. Once you're done, all you do is play soccer. But then we expect that because you might be able to do execution of stuff better, but it doesn't mean that as an individual you're going to grow. And so for me, part of what we need to do as leaders is to start going, how do I help those individuals become better? And so I have a talent called Maximizer. Maximizer is about taking something that's already good and making it great. And so I usually work with those things. And so I got certified. So I'm going to be full disclosure. I got certified as a Clifton Strengths coach. And the reason I did that was because it's one of those tools that accelerates personal development, personal growth, and gives some beautiful insights to anybody in front of you. So within 40 minutes, somebody gets, an executive summary as to what they do naturally and do very well. And it comes from 50 years worth of research and development. And so part of what we need to start doing is, that assessment costs $25 US. Are you willing to invest it? Are you willing to invest some time? Or how are you doing those conversations? And so I think as an organization, as we want to grow and as we want to transform, how do I now transform that culture from one of purely execution to a lot of development? And the minute we can start doing that, that's where you're going to see that exponential kind of transformation about what we're doing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Yes. Amazing. So now I believe that we are almost, we finished more than 30 minutes. And actually this, I just don't want to take from your time more than that. So I believe that our next episode will be on 24th of August. And I would love to actually continue talking with you, and actually it never ends, but actually I know that's, keeping the content just, adequate for the listeners for 30 minutes or something. So what kind of summary would you like to do for today's session? Maybe I wrote some notes, I put it on the ticker, but I'd love to hear from you. What do you like to?
Yeah, I think the first part is make sure that you revisit your fundamentals regularly. As a leader, you need to know, what are we trying to impact? And so the problem is that we often look at our results as our drivers, and our results is how much money are we making? What's our position? How many sales do we have? And so really for me, it's about shifting that mindset. The more we can have impact on people, usually the greater the results that we get. And so that's reputation, money, etc. The second part is about making sure that as a leader, we know ourselves, right? So there's that self-awareness, and that we take the time for reflection, and we take the time to make sure that we're staying on track. And so for me, those would be some of the stuff. And then the third part is really looking at, moving from just execution to development. And by the way, this is what staff worldwide are looking for now. They're no longer just looking for a paycheck. They're looking for an opportunity to have a sense, a purpose, and an impact. And so until you are able to help them do that, you're going to have a really hard time. I don't know if you wanted to add anything on your end.
Well, I really loved also how being honest and candid with leaders from the beginning, that it's a path, it's a journey, it takes time. And actually that the quick fixes and remedies that are put to make things happen fast is patience is one part of the process. And actually being candid with the leaders, that this is are they the correct clients or not? This is something that you have to assess in the beginning as a coach or consultant, actually, to make your partnerships a success. And actually the metaphor of the football actually was amazing. I really learned a lot from it, because actually playing football is something, you have to get out of the field, learn some skills out there, and come back again. And actually this is sometime most of the leaders don't look at. And actually, it's maybe because of the heritage, maybe that's how they developed and how they think they are developed. But actually, if they discover that this is not real leadership, or that there are lots of aspects of leadership that they're missing, because actually of the way they were appraised, or the way of their, and actually how this is impacting culture, and discover how this is impacting culture, and how this is costing them not achieving their strategy and reaching Tunisia instead of Turkey. And this metaphor also it really landed. They found themselves, actually it is a place where we have to start our conversations with our clients. I really thank you, Antoine, for this insightful session. It was really generous as usual. So our next episode is on 24th of August, the same time at 3 p.m. Cairo local time, or 9 a.m. Eastern time. And actually, the same time as we started today, it is live also for about 30 minutes. If we take some minutes about that, that would be amazing. So thank you, Antoine. I really appreciate it. And have a nice day, everyone. And a nice weekend for those who live in the Middle East. Tomorrow, Friday is the weekend. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Okay.